So we live in a world of unprecedented data collection and processing. And at the heart of that is us. So potentially, my digital data could start at 1 second past midnight. If I've got a sleep app that's logging my heart and how I sleep. And the same device that I'm using for my sleep app also wakes me in the morning. And then, before I've got out of bed, and I'm sure we've all done this, I've gone to the app, and I've checked my email, I've had a look at social media, and I've checked the news. And before I've left the house, I've also had a look at the maps and the weather to see what my journey to work or the school run's going to be like. Now, largely, that's data that I have a choice about, and I choose to leave that data. But what about the data that we don't have any choice of? Data that the government collects on us for health, education, tax, and work and pensions. Now, the government collects this data, and it rightly sort of does forecast studies on what the health of the nation is going to be like and whether we've got enough money via tax to pay for it. But with the increasing processing power of computers, these standalone databases are able to speak to each other and make assumptions about us as individuals. So in Durham, the police force there are running an artificial intelligence program that is predicting the probability of people that they have rearrested to recreate a crime. And they are looking at information from these government databases. But they're also looking at how many hours of television you watch a week, how few qualifications you've got, and whether you lived in a cramped household. Now, that's not data we've given the government. That's data that we've given marketing companies in the past that has slid its way onto the police database that's now making assumptions about our criminality. But then you're probably thinking, well, that's okay, because I'm not going to get arrested, so that's not going to affect me. Wrong, because the Home Office is sponsoring a project run by West Midlands Police that is looking at everybody. They're looking at social services databases, health databases, prescription data, and education to predict the individuals that may create a crime, and also to look at individuals that might be victims of crime. So you might find yourself flagged up on a government database as a potential crime creator or as a potential victim. This is almost like the Minority Report film with Tom Cruise in that came out 20 years ago. This is where policing is now. It's predictive policing. So this is the type of world we're bringing the next generation into. Even before a new human being has drawn its first breath, it might exist as a pregnancy app on a phone, or baby scan photo on social media. I'm sure we've all seen that before. And then when it comes out, it's going to hit the healthcare system. And at the age of 2 and 3 years old, it's going to hit the education system. Now, the education system rightly logs educational attainment, which it's used, and it uses artificial intelligence programs to predict the progress of the child in the next term or the next year. But education also logs things like mental health, physical health, emotional health. It looks at the library books you're reading, the food that you're eating, your attainment, your ethnicity, your religion. And all that data is sucked through the school and up onto the Department of Education. But schools are increasingly using more surveillance-like technologies, like CCTV cameras in school classrooms. They have them now so small as a 50p piece that gives a 360-degree view of the classroom. It's recording audio and visual 24/7. A few schools in the UK and in the US use radio frequency identification tags that they put around the children's necks so they can see whereabouts in the classroom they are, whereabouts in the school they are, and who they're hanging out with. But over the past 2 decades, schools have been taking fingerprints from children. They've been using fingerprints for accessing school libraries, canteen systems, registration systems. And they've also been taking facial scans, iris scans, and infrared palm scans. Now, the reason I'm standing here talking to you about this is because I'm a music teacher. I don't have any experience in data processing or computer. And back in 2004, when my children were 6 and 7 years old, I noticed a credit card-sized fingerprint scanner in the library of the primary school. And I said to the head teacher, when are you going to ask for my permission to take my kid's fingerprints? Because you're not going to get it. And she said, oh, well, I don't need your permission to do that. Like, what? And in actual fact, she was right. The technology had fallen through gaps in legislation that meant she could actually not only take the fingerprint or iris scan or facial recognition picture of my child, put it on a database, but she didn't have to tell me about it. So I was astounded, and I went home that evening, and I started writing to members of parliament, journalists, and privacy groups. There was barely anything on the internet about this, so I set up a blog called Biometrics in Schools. Now, the problems that I had with this was because for my 6- and 7-year-old child, it was sending a really subtle message that in order for you to have knowledge or to eat or to have access to areas, we need your fingerprint. We need your biometric measure. And that's not what we were doing in 2004 in society. We don't really do it in society today so much. So why do it with young children? Also as well, where would the data go? Can the police harvest that data? Can it go off to Interpol and Europol? Well, the answer is yes, it can. And also, what would the implications be if that biometric data was compromised? Maybe in 30 years' time, one of my children wanted to go on holiday and they were stopped at a visa checkpoint at an airport because their biometric had been compromised. That data from my child has to be secure for the next 60 to 80 years. And I had that choice taken away from me. And I was not happy about it at all. So one of the privacy organisations I wrote to got back to me and said, there are some other parents around the UK that are also concerned about this. Would you like to sort of team up with them and lobby Parliament and see if we can get some discussion on the topic and maybe get it so we can get some consent from parents? So we did. So we lobbied Parliament from 2004 to 2010. And in 2012, the Protection and Freedoms Act was passed. And that has details consent in there that both parents have to consent to schools processing a child's biometrics. And children also have to give consent for that biometric to be processed. So what's next for children in the tech world? This is one of the big tech companies' visions of what part of a smart home should look like. Smart home will detect whether a child's in it, detect whispers or quiet while active, and then infer that mischief is happening, and then report the findings. This is a real patent. This is seriously what the tech industry think we want in our homes. And I guess, maybe some educators might think this is a good idea in schools. But let's just say this what it is. It's not smart. This is an intensely privacy invasive piece of technology that we have for our children. So what can we take from this? Let's be really careful with our data footprint. Maybe for an hour or for an afternoon, just do an exercise, see where you've left exhaust your digital footprint. And let's do that maybe with your children as well and make it an exercise for them. If they see that you're acting responsibly with your information, maybe they'll take the lead, much like crossing a road responsibly to zebra crossing, and they'll do the same thing with theirs. We're custodians for the next generation's data, and we need to be incredibly responsible with it. So data is really valuable. Data is so valuable, and the people that should value it most, really, our data is us. Thank you very much.